Welcome. This is Boss Barrel Radio. I am Griff and Hoffmann, and with me is Geoff Brewer.
Hey.
James Sherer.
Thank you for this.
We are three totally normal voiced people that talk every week or so. I almost lost it there. We're talking about some Dark Souls and here to make each other laugh. That's what this podcast is about. So, guys, what have you been up to?
A little game called Elden Ring.
Whoa.
Oh.
Don't know if you've heard of it.
I was going to say I went on vacation, and also I had stuff in front of my TV, so I couldn't play Elden Ring. It was very sad.
If you let stuff in front of your TV stop you from playing Elden Ring, I don't even know what to say to you. I played blindfolded.
I think I could have been a Kotaku article about man with shit in front of his television completes Elden Ring.
I was gonna say that's the reactionary tweet to like the LTP, which is like, you put stuff in front of your Elden Ring game. I already lost it. I was gonna
Every time you die, you add a new block in front of the TV.
Yeah, the extra hard mode because summons are cheap and
totally
leveling up is cheap and all that stuff.
I feel like every time I watch a video about how to beat a boss in Elden Ring, it's always by some dude who, well, first of all, the character that he's using to beat the boss won't be leveled up and is in underpants. I don't know why that's always like a thing.
Interesting. I definitely don't get that.
And then the person will go on to start the video by saying, it's really not, I know it's intimidating, but it's really not that hard if you just get into it and you just learn the patterns. And I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really not that hard. And then the video is literally 30 to 45 minutes long.
You have a vastly different YouTube than I do, or whatever service you're using for this.
Are y'all not hitting up Fextra Life and whatever other fandom and getting served ridiculous banner ads that cover half the screen to get advice on how to kill the bosses?
I was happy we're in here already because I messaged you guys about how I'm like just ready to kind of critical path it and get moving, and I was like, if I find something that's good like guide material to get through, I'll send you away. And fuck, there is nothing that doesn't exist. Like it's Wikipedia article, it's skeletal wiki database entries, and then just the most fucking bizarre ass either long form YouTube essays, right? or like the most snappy, concise, this is how you beat this thing, and it's like person has just turned the PC specs on to ultra god mode. It's like plus 17 Estus Flash level 9,999, and it's like, oh, okay, so all you have to do is just hit it once. Got it. Good. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm gonna make the most controversial claim of 2022 and say that life was better when GameFAQs existed.
I agree.
I'm with you.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up, Geoff, because I was thinking the same thing, but how I yearn for that type of FAQ where, you have like the preamble and the patch notes to the actual
Oh my god. And the person is like so self-important about the process and like tries to crack jokes. It's great.
And has the interjections in the body of the article of like, well, you'll need this for later, or keep this in mind. And I'm like, I was thinking about that this week actually, and I was like, oh my god, it's flip-flopped. Like if I go online and I search for, let's say, a walkthrough of how to cook a dish or make a cake, one might call those recipes, and you find a fucking game FAQ of somebody's backstory and their personal attachment to this recipe, and then it's like the video games have just changed into fucking this bare bones ass worthless thing where it's like, I found this wiki article that has this blade that I'm looking up, and it references this hyperlink to this other person that's like, oh, if you want to continue with getting more information on it, click on this thing, and then you just go down this crazy ass rabbit hole of uncompleted nonsense.
I downloaded a spreadsheet. I don't know where I got it.
Oh no.
And the only thing the spreadsheet had on it was the frames during which you can perfect parry with a shield for each shield. And
no,
I don't know how I came across the spreadsheet, and I don't know how to implement the knowledge gained from the spreadsheet, but I do have the spreadsheet.
Can you get rid of the spreadsheet? Have you tried to get rid of it, and did it come back?
Are you the reason that I keep getting sexy invites on my Google Drive all the time? Because I'm getting a lot of them.
Are we talking to spreadsheet right now, or is that?
Griffin, I love your recipe analogy, because now I'm just imagining someone doing like an SEO thing for Elden Ring when they're like, after a long day at work, I just love to come home and turn on Elden Ring. Elden Ring is one of my favorite video games, but
since
sure
I was
is
a
hard.
child, my dad used to boot up Dark Souls.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna say something else.
When I'm playing Elden Ring, sometimes I just wish there was like an easy walkthrough that would help me get through it. Well, you're in luck.
Locally sourced farm table Dark Souls.
The secret of this Elden Ring walkthrough is strength builds. Have some questions? Let me tell you more. And you can click jump to walkthrough.
If only.
There's a lot of like 11 things I wish I knew before I started Elden Ring.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the other beast out there. Yes.
Those are okay.
Yeah.
Actually, those I kind of prefer to the terrible wikis. Here's what I'm going to say about Elden Ring, though, and all Souls games.
Jeff, real quick, I just have to say, they become worthless as soon as you start playing the game. And you're like, cool, now what? I restart? Great, awesome.
So yes, I agree with you. They're good if you're just getting started, but after that, you kind of need to just look up specific crap on a wiki, and it's really annoying. Or invariably, you go to like a Reddit page where someone's like, "How do I do the thing?"
Yep.
And then there's like 10 comments. One of them is good. The rest are terrible. That's how I get my facts now. But
I hate it. I do too.
yeah, it's the worst. But I was going to say
Same.
about Elden Ring, I have read stuff about Elden Ring where they're like, mage builds are OP. And like, I have tried to do mage things.
Yeah.
And it's bad.
Yep.
Like, maybe if you're good or whatever, it's good, but it's horrible. It's the worst. And the way
It sounds like you've got game problems.
I do have game problems. And I found that the way that I got good at Elden Ring, or got better at it, was just banging my head against a wall. And then
Putting a pile of stuff in front of the TV and walking away.
No, and then just
That's how you really win, guys.
and then just doing what you always have to do in these games, which is just upgrade your weapons. That's the thing that's the most important.
And
maybe
in
upgrade
my
your HP.
case, I seem to, this happened both with Margie and with Godric. I will try, and I'll get close, and I won't be able to do it. I'll go to sleep, come back next day, first try, got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why that happens, but it always, I don't know if the game is like accommodating itself to my, badness, or if it's truly just like, sleep is the trick, but for some reason that's always the case with me.
I find that in Griffin, props to you for saying this early. Like, if you walk away and do something else and then come back, oftentimes, like, not a lot will have changed. Maybe your weapon will be a little stronger and you'll have a little bit more HP.
Yeah.
But you'll just, like, stomp the enemy. Like, I was fighting Margit, and I fought him, like, probably, I'd say, like, 50 times. And I just could not beat him. And I tried so many different things. And then I left. I did some other stuff. And I came back, and I destroyed him. Like, no challenge.
Yeah,
My
whether
thing,
it's
though, is
in-game
that-
or IRL, I think taking a break from it, like literally from the task that you're banging your head against, it's the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, that's a great point, Griffith. Because for me, it's I'm not even going somewhere else in the game and leveling up. I'm just putting the game in sleep mode, going to work the next day, coming home, and then nothing has changed about my stats, and I beat the boss.
I put the game in sleep mode. I put myself a spreadsheet, a human spreadsheet in sleep mode.
You just learn the parry frames. I mean, you're fine.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the problem here?
Hey, guess which shield has the most parry frames?
Oh my god.
Because I can tell you
Which one?
right now.
The wooden shield.
Buckler.
Ooh.
Buckler, Bailey
The
Matter.
buckler.
Buckler, I like her. I like her.
Yeah.
Free to move around.
So I was trying to make a joke, and it failed horribly because I whiffed right at the outset. Maddie Myers made a good Twitter joke the other week of saying, for all the... I'm assuming the context is with all the comparison that's happening with Dark Souls to Elden Ring to Dark Souls, and a lot of folks just referring to Elden Ring as Dark Souls 4. She had said something like, hopefully let's see, a generation of older seasoned Dark Souls gamers refer to all video games as Dark Souls in the same way that your parents would call all video games Nintendos. And I just absolutely loved that and was like, oh man, how off can I do that? Can I say Dark Souls instead of video game? And
Like
the
every
answer is
game you played,
not well.
every game you played this month is Dark Souls.
It's all Dark Souls.
Here's the thing, though. Elden Ring is Dark Souls. It absolutely is. It literally just has the same enemies.
I mean, spreadsheets are Dark Souls.
They are. Spreadsheets are Dark Souls. PowerPoint is Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because so maybe I'm coming at it with a little bit of a different perspective from you guys, because I have not really in any substantive way played a Dark Souls game. I tried to play remastered, the old remastered.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got Demon Souls on PS5, the remaster, which I liked but didn't really dig into. The only Souls game that I've beaten and like loved is Bloodborne.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I feel like this one is different. It feels different. I don't know if it's just the open world thing, but I don't know if maybe I'm just ready for this type of game. To me, it feels different, but tell me why I'm wrong and why it's just Dark Souls.
I mean,
you're not. It's different.
It's different, but it is very similar. Like, there are some enemies that are just like the crabs are exactly the same as Dark Souls. I'm pretty sure it's the same model.
That's awesome.
The combat is very similar. I mean, it's different in that you can jump, right? You can jump. It incorporates some elements from Bloodborne, like charged attacks. You've got your like Ashes of War, and you've got your spirit summons or whatever they're called. So like it's broader than Dark Souls, but it shares a lot of DNA.
Yeah,
like
I think,
a lot of DNA.
Yes, I think when people say it's more Dark Souls, what the intent of that statement is to say that it's not more Bloodborne and it's not more Sekiro. It's if it's continuing the bloodline, it's continuing further down the Dark Souls route, path, lineage, and then it's ingesting in some of those lessons learned and functional fun things that people found in Bloodborne and Sekiro.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: are the enemies in this game, Elden Ring, like much more aggro than enemies in Dark Souls games? Because I feel like, compared to Bloodborne at least, these enemies are so much more aggro. I mean, it's great because it forces you to get up in their faces and roll a lot, which is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
But I just feel like so many of these enemies are so aggressive. Is Dark Souls like that?
Sort of.
Nah.
I feel like the thing that made Margit so hard for me, and this is something that happens to me with every new Souls game that like tweaks the formula. It happened to me with Cleric Beast and Bloodborne. It's like his combo strings are so long. They're like 5 and 6 hits long, and it's like the first major boss in the game.
Yeah, go watch Polygon. Patrick Gill does a good synopsis of why Margit is one of like the best challenging, most interesting bosses to come along in a long time, and he really dissects like what makes that interaction so interesting and so challenging. So I highly recommend it. But Geoff, that's one that he does a comparison to Cleric Beast, like how it just kind of sets the tone for what you're going to be expecting in it's your sink or swim moment. Here is your big baddie that you're going to have to learn some lessons from in order to be successful in the game.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely like, I don't know if it's harder than Souls. It's hard for me to compare those because obviously I played Dark Souls first, but there's definitely a lot more complexity in the ways the enemies behave. Like, I feel like there are so many different types of combo strings with Margit, and like he does single attacks, he'll do all the way up to like 7. Like his strings are so complex and so difficult to read.
Chaining.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he doesn't always chain them.
Yep.
So it's really hard. There are a few attacks that are extremely readable, but a lot of them are not, and that feels distinct. Some bosses, it's like, this is a Dark Souls boss.
Yeah,
like, literally stolen.
And Geoff, I'll tack onto what you said there by just saying that it's not necessarily harder because Elden Ring gives you a broader tool, a more expansive tool set to mitigate those challenges with.
Like distracting the boss with a summon.
Kind of like a co-op in the previous games, but you got an AI co-op, and just like we were talking about at the outset here, you've got magic, which is a much more viable option. Just the diversity of tools, literally, like weaponry and what have you.
Yeah. Jamie, did you go Did you take any elevators? Long elevators? This is a spoiler, sort of.
I've taken some elevators. I don't know if they've been overly. No.
Okay.
No, I'm in the albino village, I think it's called.
Okay.
I haven't been
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Should I be there or should I not be there?
There is no place that you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if it feels impossible. Yeah.
The albino village definitely feels impossible.
Did you fight some dude who was like slinging fire poofs in the air at you or something? And that turned you off? Yeah. Just shoot him with an arrow. It's actually just a regular enemy, so LTP. Would you like to guess how many hours my playtime clock is sitting at for Elden Ring?
70.
65. We're
69.
If we're doing prices right, I got it.
Yes,
I want the records to show.
Yeah. Jeff is closer, but Jamie, yes, you do win. Yeah.
Yes, I get the prize package.
So I've been having to snicker a little bit, and I don't know how much you guys want me to hold back from spoilers or what constitutes a spoiler, but I'll just tell you that if you're the game is very the discussion and the thought-provoking conversation around Margaret that's happening is really cool, and the game definitely makes that argument well known by how to say this, by
Twitter's going to spoil the shit out of me, so if you're struggling to say it because you don't want to spoil me, I would say don't worry too much.
I've seen a few scenes of boss battles that looked frenetic as hell. Is that what you're getting at, Griff?
Well, okay, so you may have heard one statement about, and this is kind of what I'm curious to talk about. We'll talk about with you guys later, and that's Elden Ring has received some criticism for reusing assets and reusing boss fights. Mm-hmm. In classic video game, you've got your Abobo, and then Abobo now becomes just like a regular enemy in the world. Yeah. So that happens in Elden Ring. So I think that's really interesting, but also there's something that ties into thematically in the story that is always impossible to talk about in these Soul games, because it's like, is there intent? Like there's clearly intent behind it, but what is that, and what is the message it's trying to convey in the game story? Because these stories are all fucking bad shit.
Yeah. So there's recurring enemies, which I did know about, and that's not new. Like Capra Demon in or is it Taurus Demon? I think it's Taurus Demon in
Taurus Demon's on the bridge.
Yeah, he's in two places.
Capra Demon's on the stairway with the
But I think Taurus Demon is also in the fire area. He's just chilling. There's two of them.
In this one? Or in
Dark Souls? In Dark Souls.
Oh, sure. That's the first time you fight him. That was on the
Yes, but like reusing mobs is nothing new. I know that they have like reused bosses because there's so many of them, and they'll have like one new attack.
Yeah. It's more than... Yeah. So this game is definitely not new in that regard. There is definitely something in the theme of duality that the game attempts to explore. But again, I mean, it's like J.R.R. Martin, whatever the hell his name is. Mr.
George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, Mr. Game of Thrones.
Jar Jar Martin.
Misa thinks he's not very good at his job. It's wild.
Yeah.
There was a video where he said that it was a sequel to Dark Souls, and he was wearing a Mets hat at the time, so I feel like that's the truth.
It's pretty much a sequel to Dark Souls as far as I can tell. It feels like it's probably in universe.
It's I mean, one could also argue that all those games are in a shared universe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that fits in that same model, but
yeah.
I wanted to kind of just, I don't know how much to talk about with you guys, because I think you both are kind of around the Margaret fight still, right? Like,
well, we've both beaten Godric. I'm making my way through Liurnia of the Lakes. Jamie is in Albino Village.
I've been in the Liurnia, and I tried. There was a lady, and she's like, "Can you get my ring or something? It's in the house, and it's just down the way." And I'm like, "What house?" What house are you talking about?
Google, dear spreadsheet, what house are you talking about? Tell me.
What can the shield frames? It's your Magic 8 Ball. What can they tell you about what to do next?
So,
okay,
yeah,
interesting.
I'm kind of at the point where I don't know what to do next, and I've been working a lot these days, and I don't have a whole lot of time, and I would have thought that this would not be the type of game to wet my whistle, as it were, if I only have like an hour or two to spend. But it totally is, because I can
That's
just
awesome.
get completely lost, find some weird thing. Maybe I'm not strong enough to even beat whatever boss or even just regular enemy I find in that little corner of the world. But it's just a whole heck of a lot of fun just exploring.
And it gives you a goal, too. It's like, oh, I want to come back
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. So to address two of those things that you kind of said there, Jamie, I think it's, first of all, freaking cool that you feel that same way, that you can just kind of pick up and play it and be successful with it. And I think that speaks really well as to how this game is different from its predecessors. I feel like the previous games from Software, you would oftentimes hit your head against a wall and then walk away, and you're just faced with the same wall again, and there's no real other options to do. So Elden Ring having the option to kind of change up pacing or do something different, I think that really helps to contribute to how it is successful and separate from those previous games.
Yeah, the open world matters. And jumping, I mean, I kind of goofed about jumping, but it actually really does matter.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this statement has been made, and I'm sure, whatever, I'm just going to say it because it's how I feel. I feel like when I'm riding my horse around, I get major Breath of the Wild vibes, just in terms of like the feel of the universe and the openness and the possibility. And I really dig that. And I feel like I haven't gotten that from any game since. And it's the kind of thing that you really can just do for half an hour. Maybe you even die. Maybe I mean, I've had plenty of days I come home, maybe I've got an hour or two, I try something, maybe I even lose all my souls, and it doesn't matter. I'm still having like fun exploring, and I think that's really cool.
It's interesting that you mentioned Breath of the Wild, because when I saw the gameplay preview of this game, I was like, oh, this looks like Breath of the Wild, Dark Souls.
Yeah.
In playing it, I actually haven't had that experience quite as much. A little bit. It definitely is a well-executed open world, and it's jam full of stuff, and like it feels Japanese, but I guess it didn't feel as Breath of the Wild-y as I thought it would. I don't know why that is exactly. It just kind of feels like a Dark Souls game that's just expanding in a few more directions.
I'm with you, Jamie, or Geoff. I'm in agreement there on that same kind of feeling where that wonderment, that like desire to kind of explore the landscape and just kind of get lost in it doesn't really exist in in Dark Ring, in Elden Souls, because because it feels like there's always enough stuff to do. Like I'm never at a loss for, where to now. It's always like, all right, let's go through my checklist that I've kind of been maintaining of, here's some boss fights that I've marked, or here's some monsters that I can't beat right now and I'm taking a break from, or here's a new location that I want to go check out, or here's me googling Elden Ring critical path, where do I go next? So I don't have that, like, I don't know if wanderlust is the right term, but like just the desire to kind of just be in that world and be aimless in it, like I would in Breath of the Wild or in Genshin Impact.
It's still, you're right. Genshin Impact is probably the closest I've gotten to Breath of the Wild in terms of feel, but it's very directed, which is not bad. But it's still, even in its open segments, it feels fairly directed, I think.
I admit it's a self-imposed direction, Jamie, and that was going to be my second point. Is there's been to answer maybe some common complaints out there, like the need to maintain a personal, like, handwritten quest log. Those people can just go get fucked. I mean, are you kidding me? No, that's what Google is for. And also, like, if maybe you're doing that if you're I think that's a really cool thing to do, but by no means should that be held against the game or set as like some sort of weird requirement in order to play it and experience it. Because there's, like I said, always something that you'll be able to find around a corner, and there's always enough direction to keep you kind of marching in a path to continue progressing.
I guess I'm just so, maybe it's because of my playstyle with this game. I feel like I'm so adrift. Even when I do find someone, like I found some up his own butt noble who's like, go get my fort back for me.
Did that, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like I heard what he had to say. I just kind of kept on riding my horse. And then like 2 days later, I came to a fort and liberated it. And then I remembered like, oh yeah, that guy I think this is that guy's fort. So then I went back to him and he was like, thank you.
Thank you. I'm dead now.
So I'm
quest finished.
He's not dead. He's just there. You can go
I'll
back.
tell you what, guys. You can tell when you're in the back half of a FromSoft game when the NPCs just start a-croaking.
It's true. You can tell when you're in Nier Automata when everyone dies at the end of the quest.
Yeah. When the sadness.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that quest. Now I can kill people.
Whenever I watch these videos on YouTube about Elden Ring, there's always a segment in the video where people are like, it's very important to do this quest before you reach this point, because if you don't do this quest, you won't get this item. And this item is so good because what it does is it takes your magic, and if your magic is on a sickle, it'll double that when you fight undead zombies. So really... And it's like, no, I don't care. I don't need that.
Just take your weapon from +5 to +6, and none of that matters.
Yeah, Jamie, to your point too. I appreciate your joke, and because I can 100% relate to it. Where I've gotten to a point in trying to finish this game this year, and I'm having to be aware of those style of recommendations, and really just kind of be at peace with letting some of that go. Because if I'm not going to get to it, I'm not going to get to it, and in order to finish the game, there's going to have to be some sacrifices made. I'm just not going to see it all, and if I go down that path, I feel like I'm like it's kind of like making like a priority list or something like a to-do list on a vacation where you're like, I'm going to see this, I'm going to see that, I'm going to go to this amusement park, that type of thing. And I'm like, here's my major beats that I'm interested in engaging in. And I'm just kind of going to make that deal with myself and not get hung up on, well, if I go and progress this to this point, I cut myself off from X, Y, and Z. And I think that's really important in this game just because of the size. And this is my last little point I have to railroad in here is, if you guys are spending a good chunk of time and you're still kind of around the Stormvale and Wetlands area, buckle up, because that's maybe a third of the content.
Awesome.
That's not too bad, actually. I mean, it's a lot, but it's also not too bad.
See, when I hear that, so I guess the way that I'm approaching this game is I'm not going to beat this game this year. I'm going to be playing this game for a long time, and I'm going to play other games and beat other games while I'm still playing this one because I'm enjoying just being completely lost. And I kind of want to get into that mage city. I accidentally got in one way by opening a bad chest once.
Oh, the trap chest. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. That place is spooky.
But I don't...
Wait,
and I don't know how to get
city
back there.
Are you in?
It's called Kaled, I think.
Oh, are you in the underground mines with all the centipedes that were shooting lasers and...
Yes.
Yes.
I cleared that
dropping
out.
missiles at you? Oh, yeah, that's nothing.
I couldn't clear it out when I was there first. But...
that area is sprawling and still just a small section of that same main continent that I'm referring to as Get Out of the Hinterlands.
Yeah.
Basically, this is my FF7. I'll never beat it. And I'm okay with that. I'm gonna beat Horizon Forbidden West before I beat this game. I'm gonna beat Triangle Strategy before I beat this game.
I'm writing these things down. Time stamping things that will never happen.
My final thought on Elden Ring, a game which I really like, and I'll just spoil a little bit for you, Jamie. There are some areas that are not immediately evident that you can happen upon, and this is a hallmark of Dark Souls, or Souls games in general. But the way these are executed is really cool and really startling. Those are super cool. I love those. But it almost feels like too big, to the point that like I'm just overwhelmed sometimes with how much you could possibly do in this game. And I like kind of wish it were a little smaller so I could appreciate it all a little more. But I guess it's not a bad thing because everything they've built is like pretty good. So I don't know how to feel about it.
Well, I think, Geoff, your sentiment is exactly the same thing that I'm coming to terms with in what I was saying, where it's like I have to be willing to let some of this stuff go. I have to be willing to say I'm not going to pursue the Dung Eater quest and see that thing to fruition. Like I have cleared one of the major character quests in the story, like one of the grander story quests, and I'm good there. And Jamie, to your point of just like you're good with kind of meandering through at a comfy pace and just taking it all in. I mean, I think that's great. There's so much to be had, and that's, Geoff, that feeling that I got if you're referring to taking an elevator and being enamored by a location that just keeps going, like that continues to happen again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And like there are areas that are truly 100% optional, like that. Amongst others, and this quest, the story quest that I pursued, is 100% optional. You do not need to do it, but it really sheds light on the world. And I was I listened to some other things that said, hey, this is one of the bigger ones if you're looking to get some of the major story beats. So I appreciated doing the Ronnie quest line. If you guys are, I would recommend looking that one up and trying to run through it. It'll bring you to some interesting parts of the game too, if you are saying like I'm curious of seeing some of those more optional areas. But Jamie, to your point, like I have had to commit to a methodology to this where because of how sweeping it is and because of how exhausting it can be as you continue to play through it, I really had to say, like, okay, I'm only playing Elden Ring. Like, I would love to play change of pace with Forbidden West and Triangle Strategy and Tunic and all the other things that I've kind of touched. But I think for me, in order to see the end of Elden Ring, I need to commit to it for two reasons. One, like I feel like I'm getting a momentum in it, and since it is so skill based at some points, to take a week off and be away from it makes me feel like I've got skills that are atrophying, and I in order to beat some of the bosses without just relying on max leveling and looking at grinding souls and levels and that type of stuff, I feel like I do have to keep the pedal to the metal there. So that's one reason I've got that kind of going, and the other one is I feel like if I step away from it, I'm just going to kind of lose where my progress, like we've talked about how challenging it is to find a good clean guide. Like I feel like if I don't keep abreast of what I need to do, I'll be like, okay, and now I'm completely lost here and don't know where I picked things up.
Follow the yellow lines, man.
Yeah, I just left all these tree marker icons all over my map, and I don't know what that was supposed to mean for myself. Cool.
I feel like for me, when a game is as big and sprawling as this, I really like how when you do come across something that's optional and it blows your mind, it makes it feel all the more special because you have that feeling like, wow, I really could have just completely overlooked this. And I totally get, I mean, I think that if my life circumstances didn't allow me to play Switch on a train for 2 hours a day, I think I would only be playing Elden Ring 2. But actually, because I have 2 hours a day on a train, or I'm not going to be remotely playing Elden Ring, I'm playing, Kirby and Triangle Strategy on the train, which are both games that I enjoy, and they're both games that are what they are, and I've already played those games. When I come home and boot up Elden Ring, it also kind of reinforces like, oh wow, like this is
ain't no train game.
This is like a different experience. It's a different feel, and it has a whole different sense of wonder and exploration.
It's
and
on
so I
level,
feel like yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the thing that makes it both incredible but also a little hard is like it is for me. You said it's not like Dark Souls for you, right? Or how is it like Dark Souls? For me, it's like Dark Souls, except they just up the ante so much that it's a little overwhelming. It doesn't make it a bad game. It's like astonishingly quite good across the board all the time. But man, is there a lot of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's right. I kind of stole some of that mentality from, I think her name is Janet Garcia. She's on, I think, Kind of Funny and MinMax. I really, really like her voice in Dark Souls discussions or video games. Some people might call them. She's got a really cool perspective she's so concise, and I really appreciate that in games journalism stuff. But that was something she said as somebody had asked, like, how do you finish so many games, especially with being in your job? Like, you don't see a lot of that. And her one of her biggest recommendations was, set expectations on what you're going to do to finish the game. Are you finishing the game on the hardest mode, no cheats, blah blah blah, because that's your quote unquote definition of finishing the game? Or do you have flexibility? What is your purpose of being there? And then with that, once you come to an understanding of that, then can you move the difficulty down, or can you excise certain portions of optional content, or is a collectathon not gonna really, if you get a couple widgets, are you good with that? So that was one of her points. The other point was really force yourself to finish the game. So don't play other games. Don't muddy the waters. Keep focused, because then you start creating excuses and you won't finish it. And I really liked those tips. I thought they were really, really clean. And in a point of the year where we're lucky to have so much great games, so many great games out right now, it's easy to kind of just get pulled in so many different directions that you can't progress in any of them.
True, very true.
Yeah. Also, I can see why you like her, because she advocates for beating games. Yes.
I do appreciate that too, because she also said she finished the Kirby game, Kirby Forgotten Land, and she said the ending has turned her around on the game at large. So I was like, oh, hello. And
in
now
a
you have
positive
the
way?
In a positive way.
What?
Yeah, she was kind of down on it, and then said the ending of Kirby has made her reappreciate the game and has elevated it from where it was through the main playthrough.
Well,
Wow.
can we
Yeah, I'd love to
can we transition
yeah.
into, because
Yep,
the
there's
Kirby game is good game. The Kirby game is very good Kirby game, and very good game, capital G.
Is it
Yeah.
like on the level of like Triple Deluxe and Robobot, Jamie?
Or like
It
Dark Souls?
Yeah, Dark Souls and Dark Souls.
I feel like it's very much. I'm thinking of Robobot. Robobot. I'm thinking of Robobot when I play it often. It's giving me that same sense. I read a review by someone at one of the major outlets saying that this game didn't do anything new after the first hour, and that's just false. This game is surprising and delightful somewhat consistently, in a way that I would say like a Mario game can be. I don't think it's on the level as like a mainline Mario title, certainly not. But I think that it's an excellent Kirby game. It's airy, it's breezy. It can be challenging, especially in the optional stages. There's tons of secrets. The level design is quirky and bizarre and completely endearing. And it's just a delightful... It's not the kind of game that you're going to sit down and play for hours. It's the kind of game that you sit down, you play for 45 minutes or an hour, you feel like you did something, and you did. Maybe you even completed a whole zone. You saw a cool boss, and then that's it. You put it down. And I think it's just a great Kirby game. And I think that they are doing some things that maybe push it beyond what I might have expected from them. There's like a town that you're building out where you can buy upgrades, which is cool. But really, I think it just is another Nintendo title with a ton of spit polish and just like a gleam and a shine that other platformers don't have. Almost in a way that kind of reminds me of like Astrobot. And just like it's like Astrobot is not difficult, and Astrobot after a certain point has done what it's going to do, and yet it's still a joy to play. And I feel like,
Astrobot's also like free and like 2 hours long, right?
Yeah. So this is actually, if I can jump in. So I played the Kirby demo, fully expecting to love it. I didn't love the demo.
I wrote this review for a major game publication. Submitted it. Got paid.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't love the demo. Here are the things that happened to me, and I'm wondering if you ever experienced this in the very beginning, and if that started to shift. Immediately, it felt like a B game, like a budget title, that had kind of phoned in music. Just things didn't feel. It's interesting that you say it was spit, shine, and polish, because it actually felt a little unpolished to me.
Interesting.
Not so much that the world itself was unpolished, but the interactions didn't feel very. They weren't not meaty, but they weren't tactile enough for me. Stuff that was happening in the world.
Not enough chew.
Yeah, not enough chew. And the levels
more bite-sized, less mouthful.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, bite-sized mode. Yeah, the levels were very simple, which I expect in a Kirby game, but there just wasn't a lot to them. It was like a 3D world, but it might as well have been a 2D world, which is fine. But it just felt very small.
I see. Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely doesn't feel. I mean, it doesn't have the expansive feel of Super Mario Odyssey. And I get what you're saying. I think the music I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like that they recycle tracks pretty often. Yeah. And I will say that even though I love the game, certainly not all stages are equal. And I feel like they poured a lot of love and attention into certain stages, and maybe others didn't get the same degree of attention.
Yeah.
But I'll also say that as I've progressed, were you in one zone, the first area?
They just put you through the first 2 levels. So it's really the introductory content. And I came away from the demo being well, this could get better, or this could just be this for the whole game.
It gets better. Okay. It gets
That's
better.
Good to hear.
The second zone, they really start to be more playful with the setting. For example, there's there's an abandoned mall, and then you're underwater.
Okay. I fought the gorilla.
Oh, you fought the gorilla, so you were in the abandoned. No, I guess that was the first stage. Yeah. The second area is more of an industrial zone, and that changes things up a little bit. It gets a little bit harder, and the optional stages get a lot harder. Okay.
And the collectibles, I mean, that's what I always expect in a Kirby game. The 3 collectibles. It's kind of like a Nintendo hallmark, 3 items in every level.
I will say that if you didn't jive with it with those first couple levels, you probably won't. It probably won't grow on you, but I do think that it's getting better as I go on. I'm in the second kind of zone now.
Because I loved Triple Deluxe, and I loved Epic Yarn. Those are both incredible games to me.
I love them
I've liked
too.
Other Kirby games, but this one just didn't immediately grab me. But I was curious, if you're feeling like there's an escalation. So maybe keep me posted, I guess.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I'm hoping that it continues to evolve and get a little more intricate too. Yeah. But I don't know. Even though I completely agree, the levels are simple, but maybe it was just what I needed at the time. Maybe it's a great counterpart to Dark Souls. I'm kind of
yeah,
sure, I'll take this.
That's kind of
light, breezy, non-invasive,
and that's what Kirby is supposed to be. So that's fine. It's just something, I don't know. It hasn't quite grabbed me yet, and it's always a dice roll with a Kirby game, because they really run the gamut in terms of what they're doing, and kind of what they're targeting in terms of game feel and unique mechanics and stuff. So I don't know. But I appreciate that you're liking it, Jamie, and that is good to hear. It's honestly just because I've been on vacation and I have so many other games in the queue right now. I just didn't buy it because I didn't want to overload myself.
Yeah, totally.
But it's a contender for maybe some other time if you're continuing to like it. So,
yeah,
I'm curious too, Jamie. Same reasons, combined with Janet's praise of the ending, kind of changing things up. I'm really. It's on my to-do list, just not now.
Triple Deluxe had a pretty crazy ending. I never played Robobot. I should, though. I know it's supposed to be really good.
That's a great one, yeah.
But,
well, speaking of other Switch games, you said you're also playing Triangle Strategy, and I can't think of 2 more opposite games.
Yeah,
I feel like
I'm pretty
like the triangle of the Venn diagrams that shall not meet ever are Elden Ring, Triangle Strategy, and Kirby the Forgotten Land, games you could be playing right now.
I'm pretty deep into Triangle
you?
Strategy. Are you guys playing it?
Yeah.
I'm on like chapter 10 or
Holy
after.
shit. Okay.
Nowhere near. Yeah.
I finished the demo and then bought the game, but I haven't played since. Demo's like 4 chapters long.
Yeah. I'm it sounds like I'm pretty far. I like the game a lot. I think it's not as hard as I was kind of hoping, and I think I'm playing on normal, so I should probably bump up the difficulty, but it's the story is actually more endearing than I thought it would be. So that's one thing. The voice acting is continually hilarious and just like off-putting, and
I love it.
They're so bored all the time.
The writing is
so
also
bored.
the character dialogue writing is also fucking weird as hell. From the little bit I played,
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I think it's actually a pretty reasonably well written game.
Sorry, my point in saying that is I think that the some slang and some vernacular that they use like doesn't stay consistent, and it contributes to like the weird voice acting that happens with it. Yeah,
I do think it does its political intrigue pretty well, though. I haven't even hit the conflict yet. I'm just like learning about the different areas, and seems pretty sweet.
You make a pretty significant decision early on that I think completely changes the story, and basically puts you in direct opposition with one of the other two empires and kind of neutral to the other. And I chose one way, and I'm just kind of continually wondering like what the story would have been like had I chosen the other way. So I don't know, maybe I'll play it again.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. I think the richest parts of the game that I have found so far is in some of the optional characters that you'll get down the line. There is a merchant that does all sorts of interesting stuff with money and persuading enemies and enraging enemies.
Cool. I love
and there's another guy who basically builds traps and contraptions. So you can set a trap that if an enemy sits on a certain square, they'll be like shoved in a certain direction, and then you can set up all sorts of cool combos that way.
So you went to the Northern Kingdom, Jamie, when you had the first choice?
I went to the salt place. I wanted to see the salt.
Okay, so you got the Cryomage. Okay,
yes,
I did too.
Yes, I did.
Sea salt.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the salt.
I like the salt place,
and I think,
was cool.
Yeah, I think that puts you in opposition to Aesfrost.
No, I think it's a different decision involving Aesfrost. I think, or maybe Aesfrost is just always going to be the invader.
I'll tell you what, guys. I haven't got to that critical decision point, so you just tell me which one you very explicitly did not choose, and I will go that route.
Go to Aesfrost. it just determines a character you get, though.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
That decision doesn't.
You don't think it?
I read online because I wanted to know. I was like, "What does this affect?"
Okay.
And it just affects the character.
Gotcha.
I mean, you get scenes you wouldn't get otherwise, but that's all.
You get a lady who can use items twice in a turn, which is really cool.
Gasp.
You get a lady that can you get like a kind of bardish healer on horseback. She's pretty cool. What I really like about the game is I have lost a few battles, but what I learned pretty early on is that even if you're going to lose a battle, just finish it to the end and just do things that get you experience points, because once you lose the battle, it'll give you the option to save all the experience that you've earned and just restart back at the beginning of the battle.
Awesome.
And you don't lose units, right? It's not punitive.
No permanent.
Like Fire Emblem game is with that.
No. And you can save the XP that you get even if you lose the battle. So it kind of, because of those two things, it kind of encourages you to use these weird characters. You still have that classic tactical RPG issue where you can only put so many people in a main battle, and how many of those slots are you really going to play around with?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think because the game has this kind of more open feel to it, I do end up putting those weird ass characters in a lot of the main battles and seeing how things like shake out. Sometimes I lose and I still have like a really fun time just dicking around and making the enemy furious at me by having the merchant like throw coins at them for no reason.
I heard that.
And it's
yeah, go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
No, go on.
I heard that the leveling is very forgiving too. So like if you're underleveled, you'll catch up pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah, which is great. I love that.
The mages, I have 3 different types of mages. They all seem to play very different roles,
I love that too.
Which is great.
The Ice Mage seems
the
really
Ice
cool.
Mage, Yeah, for crowd control, he makes that ice wall. And then I have another mage who also does a different kind of crowd control where he can like blast enemies in a range and maybe shove them up against the wall. It's really cool. It's a great game, and I've been playing it a lot. I don't know. I well, when I'm on call and whatever, I have a spare 45 minutes or whatever, I'll crack it open and play. I'm really enjoying it.
I'm excited to hear you're liking it so much because I did really enjoy what I played of the demo, which has continued the trend of like really meaty JRPG demos from Square Enix. Like Dragon Quest XI had an incredibly long demo. But yeah, no, I loved what I played, and I loved that it's setting up that thing that Tactics Ogre really does very well, which is like making it so that doing the quote unquote right thing doesn't necessarily lead to the good ending. Or at least I get that vibe. Like it's very big. There seems to be 3 major paths. It's like utility, freedom, and equality, I think, are the 3 paths, if I recall correctly. Does that sound right, Jamie?
Oh, I don't know.
Every decision basically kind of reinforces one of those paths. And I know, like, just from reading some stuff that, like, sometimes you make choices like, do I, like, set this village on fire to stop the attackers, even though, like, my people live there? Or, like, do I
totally did.
You set it on fire. That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And that gives you different characters. That's a viable path.
That's a viable path. And it's, I will say the writing, completely agree, Griffin. The writing is stilted and the banter between the characters is sometimes insufferable. But I do think whoever translated the game did a good job of, when you are faced with a choice like that, it's a clear choice that they tee up a while in advance, and they really set it up to allow you to make whatever decision you want and kind of know that either way it's, you're not like, either way is viable. And I think that normally in a game like that, if they had given me the choice, hey, you can win this battle by burning your village down, or you can not burn your village down. I think normally the nice Jewish boy in me would prevent me from burning the village down. But in this game, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm burning this village down. And it was like a viable and interesting choice with interesting ramifications.
Well, go ahead, Griff.
Oh, I'll just say real quick, since I have played significantly less than you guys. One thing I'm picking up on is if there is choice in this game, and it sounds like there is, and it seems like it's doing a good enough job to give you an illusion that it is, crafting, that it is shaping the direction your story is going in. And whether it is or it isn't, Geoff, it sounds like you're confirming some of those beats. But it sounds like when you go down a path, you're getting an immediate change. Like, you're getting a character in your party that then you wouldn't have otherwise. Yes. So you're cutting yourself off, which I think is a fantastic direction for a morality, I'm doing air quotes or square quotes right now, based system, because so often, have we become exposed and normalized to this background sliders of gray in Western RPG that's like, well, if I do enough good things, then I'll get the good ending, or if I do enough bad things, then I'll get the bad dialogue option at this point. And I think that has really caused a mental I think that's changed the way we mentally approach games, and a methodology that we employ when we are playing things that have morality in them, because it forces us to think like, okay, if I'm min-maxing this and I long con it, what do I do here? If I do the nice things, versus like Jamie, what you're saying is like, if I just do this now, I know something's going to happen immediately from it, and that's fascinating, opposed to the long burn.
Yeah, I just want to, not to harp too much on this specific choice in the game, but I do think it's a fascinating kind of microcosm of maybe what the game has to offer, is that in the story, in the linear narrative of this game, this choice, whether to burn the village or not, is queued up and talked up in advance. But the choice of whether or not to burn the village is not a binary choice, yes or no, that you make
Eat the
before
baby, kill
the
the
battle.
Baby. Eat the village, burn the
village. The choice is not made, and then the battle starts. And at any point during the battle, if you feel like you cannot win, you can choose in
beautiful.
The heat of the battle to set the village on fire. You don't even need to set the whole village on fire. You can set only parts of it on fire. I just set the whole dang thing on fire because I was like, this kicks ass. But I really appreciated that aspect of it, because I could totally see in any other game, especially a Western game, it would be a story dialogue choice before the battle starts, and that would determine what the map looks like. But in this game, it's like, no, you start. You can try to do it without burning the village down. That fight is really. I mean, Geoff, I'm sure you could pull it off.
I'm playing on hard mode, and it is a traditional hard mode. It reminds me of Fire Emblem, where you gotta wait for them to come to you, and they will hurt you.
Ugh.
Oh man, so then you're probably gonna have to burn.
Which
the
is
village
exciting
down,
though.
unless
I have to. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really appreciated that, and I think that I haven't seen another choice exactly like that, unfortunately, but there are choices sprinkled throughout, and I'm digging it.
So it really reminds me of Tactics Ogre, because that's exactly what Tactics Ogre does with its choices. It gates certain characters behind certain paths, and typically the cooler or more desirable characters are behind the path that makes you feel worse. So it's funny because there's it's always law, chaos, and neutral in Tactics Ogre games. And law usually results in your character just being a complete monster. But invariably leads to the good ending. And then chaos is the one where you try to be a decent human being, but it's always a bad ending. And I really appreciate that, because it feels, it has a certain unique feel to it, where it's it kind of paints politics or politics of that era in a very you cannot think of yourself and the people around you and doing right by them. You have to think of the greater good and do lesser evils in the service of the greater good. And I like that. I like being kind of having that forced on me.
The other last thing I want to say about this game is it's definitely doing that JRPG thing I love, where you have an evil character who has evil intent in their hearts, and you don't like them, and maybe they kill some of the people in the game that you like. And then later on, there'll be an optional cutscene where you see this evil character give maybe an enslaved good character some really heartfelt advice on how to survive being captured. And it's doing that classic JRPG thing where it's like, oh man, I kind of like this evil person now.
Eventually, they're going to join my party.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but yeah, I'm delighted to hear that you like it, Jamie. After so many hours and so many chapters, I loved what I played, and then I went on vacation and thought I would play the Switch, but I didn't. And then
I'm gonna put it on hard mode. I think.
Go for it.
Let's see what
I
happens.
was gonna say, then I came back from vacation and got deep into a game called Coromon.
Tell me.
So
that looks so cool.
Coromon's really fun. So. The way I found out about this game was I opened my Feedly, which I had not been looking at of late, and it was like, Coromon delayed on Switch. And I was like, what's that? And I opened it.
Wait, hold on. You opened your what?
Feedly?
What's what?
Like Twitter?
Feedly is like a... So I used to use something called Pulse.
Is that what you call your zipper?
Yeah, exactly. It's basically an RSS reader. I use it to aggregate all my preferred news sources.
Gotcha.
So I cracked that open and I looked at it. I was like, oh, what's this Coromon game? And I kind of just went down a rabbit hole, and I was like, oh, I wonder if this is any good. And essentially, it's a Pokemon clone. That's really the long and short of it, but it is a really good Pokemon clone in a lot of ways. It very much feels GBA-ish. I would say it's kind of an amalgamation of GBA era Pokemon and DS era Pokemon. It's got those lovely animations that Black and White had, and Black and White 2 had. I don't know if you guys played Griff, I'm sure you played. Jamie, did you?
No, but I've just watched some stuff and the screenshots that you're sending. Yeah. It looks beautiful.
The creature design is so good. I'm very impressed by the creature design in this game. They're so loaded with personality. They don't quite feel like Pokemon. They feel like their own thing. I don't know if they feel like Coromon, but they are. There's sort of a design language, and they're all just. I really like so many of them. There are a lot of winners in there. Nothing that's made me just be like, what the hell is this? I could get into the creature design at length. There's a ghost cat. There's a sick giant fat frog that I have on my team. I have this cool earth snake. I've got a big old polar bear. I've got a cool like viper that has poison attacks.
Do they?
Go ahead.
Do they, not to interrupt, but do they evolve?
They do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They evolve, and this is actually a cool little.
It's very Pokemon.
It is very Pokemon-like, but there's really cool little things. So, like, there are these hidden evolution methods that the game never really surfaces. Some of which I've discovered just kind of by accident or through doing a little reading on the side. Like my ghost cat, the store that in the village where you can find it sells like essentially cat kibble. And every time you feed it a cat kibble, you lower the level it needs to evolve at. And like the game does not surface that information anywhere. It's just like, oh, it loves this kibble. And if you feed it a bunch, it'll evolve early. Then there's like a bug where if you buff its attack 6 times, it'll just evolve in the middle of the fight, which is super cool.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah, mid-battle.
It is really cool.
Mid-battle evolutions are really cool. I really like
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just like it'll sometimes just throw multiple enemies at you, like it's no thing. You'll just be walking through the grass, and then like 2 or 3 enemies will show up, and you can catch one of them and run away from the battle. You can fight them all. You have a lot of latitude in that regard.
So I think, Geoff, you said that it differs from Pokemon in that it's kind of creating a more interesting, maybe not difficult, but more interesting battle system. I'm kind of hearing some of that right now with multi-battles and mid-evolution.
I mean,
is there more than that?
I mean, it
Reel me in further, baby.
It feels like it takes a lot of Pokemon DNA, right? So it takes the stuff I like most about Pokemon, like abilities, which are they call them traits in this game, but like essentially unique skills that like can influence the way the Coromon plays. Like, you know, like it takes less damage from physical attacks, or like, you know, when it inflicts a status effect, it drains SP. SP is what you use to use your move, so it's a little different. Rather than the PP thing, where you have 4 moves and they all have their own like basically number of uses. You have like essentially an MP pool, and every move uses MP, and you can rest mid-battle to restore half of your MP, but it wastes a turn.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
That is cool.
Is there a story where you're kind of like one of the Pokemon is like kind of like God, and it sends you back in time, and you're like,
no, although that game owns. Oh, I love that game so much.
Yeah.
I beat it, and it's so good. Anyway, no.
Is there a story?
There is a story. I mean, the story is nothing like special, but it's fun. It's engaging. It's another interesting wrinkle on the kind of tried and true formula. So instead of beating gym leaders, you're collecting Titan essences.
Beating James leaders.
You're beating Coromon leaders. No, you're collecting Titan essences. You're basically your Thanos.
Titan Souls?
Yes.
Dark
You're
Souls?
Thanos because you have a glove and you have to put your Titan Souls inside of it, and there's 6 of them. No, but
everything in perfect balance.
No, you're collecting Titan Souls, and how that translates into gameplay is that you go through dungeons and you fight giant bosses at the end, which have like massive health pools. Like I just fought a sand boss that had like 900 health. And it does really cool things. Like in the middle of the battle, it'll like throw a gimmick out. So like, for example, in this battle, couple things happened. Like when it went down to about half health, it threw a couple other Coromon at me and left the battle for a little while. Then when it got down to like a
classic villain maneuver.
Yeah, when it got down to like 100, it like restored all its status and then did this like ultra attack that attacked every member of my team, not just me. It was very cool. But like it attacked me like 4 times and then attacked people in my reserve ranks like 1 and 2 times. It was very cool. I fought one that I got him down to 1 health and then he revived himself to like half health. It's really neat.
Sounds like an Elite 4 battle where you're like, cool, hyper potion. Awesome.
They have so much character. Like these Titans are so well designed.
Reductive.
Like you never quite know what gimmick you're going to encounter. So like you go in, you think you're ready for the fight, and like you're like, okay, I got my guy that it's like weak 2 or whatever, and you like start wailing on it and you're chipping it away, and then like you get it down to like a quarter of its health, and it's like, bet you didn't see this coming, jerk. And then it does something weird, and you're like, ah, shit. But it's really cool.
Does it feel, okay, so that sounds cool, but I also feel like there could be a part of me that would find that really frustrating where it's like, okay, I'm ready for this fight, and now it's like, how would I have even remotely known to prepare for this sort of situation?
Yeah. I mean, I think it does a pretty good job of sort of signposting like, hey, you need to save here. What I will say about the game,
so not good. Okay.
Well, no, I mean, if you lose, you black out, and you go back to the Pokemon Center, or you retry from your last save or whatever. Like
I've never done that.
Yeah, it's you do one of those two things. And there's also a good checkpoint system, because some of the dungeons, and this is actually a complaint, the first dungeon, the first Titan dungeon, is very long, like probably 2 whole floors longer than it needs to be.
Crosscode long?
I didn't get very far in crosscode. It's just it felt pretty long. So the later dungeons haven't been as bad, but it can be a bit of a slog sometimes, I will say. But what it does have that modern Pokemon doesn't have is difficulty. I'm playing it on normal, and I actually feel tension in these battles. Like, I actually feel like I maybe could lose.
Like, you could maybe lose an Arceus?
Like, I could maybe lose, and I mean...
maybe you're not... All I'm saying, Geoff, is this is the second instance where you're like, yeah, this Pokemon game's kind of hard. And Jamie and I are like, huh? What?
You didn't think Arceus had a little bite to it?
No, we talked about it, and I agreed from as you explained your stance on it. But no, I'm just harassing you because it's like, maybe you're losing your edge, man.
I've only...
Well, Geoff is always doing some weird thing where he's like, Geoff, maybe Geoff isn't using items. Maybe Geoff is playing with
he's never
his
healed.
left hand only.
Yeah, only never healed a Pokemon.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing stuff.
Nuzlocke.
It's all Nuzlocke.
It's challenging, and I just recently fought a mirror match against my own team, which I didn't even know was coming. Which was quite hard because all the different members of my team were just a little bit stronger than me.
Cool.
It was really cool.
Huh.
Are you so one of the things that I always wonder about with these Pokemon clones is the PvP stuff, and I feel like what keeps Pokemon going obviously is that there are people walking around at PAXs with original Game Boy DMGs, and they're asking if you want to battle them, and they have their link cable. And I feel like that's what these spin-offs never seem to capture. Have you done any PvP in this game?
I have not.
What
done
do you think
PvP.
about that?
I know it exists. I think it exists anyway. There is an area for it. Maybe it's not rolled out yet, but I think it is. There's probably potential there. I mean, there have been a couple bugs, but the developers have been really fast to address and fix them. Like, I had a Coromon that had an ability which basically returned damage every time an attacker made contact. And that ability was broken at launch, but they fixed that pretty quickly. I've noticed a few other bugs here and there, but they're still patching it pretty aggressively right now. But in terms of PvP legs, I mean, I can't imagine it's going to have the kind of legs that Pokemon will have. But the core game, the difference between it and Pokemon is that the core game is really fun, and I feel.
How about the Mon game?
The Mon game also very fun. I feel compelled to use lots of different Coromon. The leveling curves are pretty generous. It doesn't take that long to catch people up. And I don't know, I've been switching up my team. XP share? There is an XP share. It's a little bit, you kind of have to go a little out of your way to get it. There's 2 tiers of XP shares as well. There's an okay one and then a pretty good one. But it's not a huge deal to figure out how to do it. It's just kind of a little bit of hey, how do I find this thing? There's also a really cool system involving potential. So that's the game's version of all the random variants in Pokemon stats. That's really fucking complicated and ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So instead of that, this game assigns every Coromon a potential value from 1 to 21 essentially. And over 15, its appearance changes and it's called potent. And then at 21, it's perfect, and it has a really cool appearance change.
It's legal.
It's legal, yeah. 21 is perfect for me. That's what I like. 18 and above is good. 21's the best. So the game, it's interesting because the game, you'll encounter potent guys pretty regularly. The odds are 1 in 30, let's say. The perfect ones have much lower odds. But if you get a guy that has 20, which is not too hard to find, you can use a method to get it up to perfect. So I have one perfect guy right now. But it's a version of shiny hunting, which doesn't feel...
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you can build shiny.
You can, and this is another interesting thing. That is your EVs as well. So potential is basically a separate meter that fills up when you get experience, and the higher your potential, the quicker it fills up. So you get additional stat points that you can choose how to invest every time it goes up. It's cool.
I have to say, I've been watching, like, I've been looking at the screenshots on Steam while you've been talking about it, and as someone who builds and rips apart and tests a lot of Game Boy Advances, this game like masters that. It's how you remember Game Boy Advance games looking. Actually, Game Boy Advance games never looked anywhere near this good, but it's how you remember them looking. It's like, I feel like it's mastered that aesthetic.
It's got some beautiful chunky pixels, and the palette is very GBA. Like I said, those animations are just like sumptuous and lovely. The different palette swaps of the different guys are really cool. It's so polished. It's the most polished. I mean, I've not played a lot of knockoffs. I've played some Pokemon fan games. This is on another level. Like, it's definitely worth your time if you have an interest in the genre. Excuse me. And you know, I think it stands on its own. It's doing some interesting stuff. Like, it's simplified in a lot of ways. Like, there's only 7 different types that your Coromon could even be, and then there's like some attack only types, but it also adds some kind of interesting wrinkles, because like a bug is a normal and like a snake is a normal, but like how they differentiate those two is kind of interesting, because of how few types there are. Is cool.
You playing on the Surface Go?
I go back and forth between the Go and the PC depending on what's going on, but it'll run on a potato. It runs great on the Go.
Awesome.
It's also available on Switch.
It will be.
Will be.
It
okay.
was delayed, so it was supposed to launch day and date. There was an issue with Nintendo. They're trying to get it out as quickly as they can, and
I see there's an Apple version too.
Yes, it's planned for iOS and Android, I believe, as well this summer. Switch was supposed to be day and date. There just was a delay.
Gotcha.
But I guess they're supposed to be cloud saving or cross save between Switch and PC, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah, but there is an Apple version out right now, which is cool.
Oh, is there really?
Because I could play it on my MacBook.
Is it? When I looked at it last week.
Oh,
okay,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
I was looking at mobile.
It works on Apple Compute. Yes, there is an Apple version. Yes. Yeah. Try out the demo. The demo is it's not exactly the same as the main game, but it's quite similar. And you can carry over your progress. Yeah.
Cool.
It's really fun. Just, if only just to watch those little creatures dance around. They just did a real good job on the creatures. That's all. But yeah.
Awesome.
I was curious who the developer was, and I'm looking at their website.
It's Geoff.
Tragsoft?
Yeah.
This is Geoff's game.
Developer? I think it's a pair of Northern Europeans.
Yes. This is they started as like a labor of love in 2014.
Yeah.
So
no, it's
very cool.
It's really cool.
Team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like that's not hindering it by any means. It looks really awesome.
No, and I think it's only going to get better. Like, again, it is an indie game at its core, right? So it's never going to be like as polished as a major title, but it's really quite polished for what it is.
Critical question here that's basically going to be the make or break for me. On-screen, on-field monsters?
Nope.
Oh, bye.
Yeah, that's. I forgot to mention that. That's gonna irk a lot of people. Is that it's totally random encounter based.
That's so interesting, because I would think that's what people want.
Random encounters?
What?
Some people.
Yeah,
do.
I mean, I'm not in. I don't know the scene well, but I would just think that because Pokemon that's the way it was. I would assume that's what people want, but maybe I'm completely mistaken.
I mean, it's a lot cheaper to do that, I think, and also some part of the audience does want it, right? I slipped right back into it, like putting on a glove, but it's going to be hard for some people. Some people being Griff,
right? I mean, obviously, I'm not a developer or anything, but if you would basically just hide the sprites, do you feel like, okay, so Geoff, you made a comment of like it's probably more expensive because you have more labor, more development to code that into like an overworld field, blah blah blah, but like, do you think if that was an option, if you started development with that first and then you just hid the sprites and they were invisible, if that would like, would you feel like you're being duped, or I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't know. I mean, I think the problem is when you're making it grid based, like the classic Pokemon games, it's probably hard to make overworld encounters work with that system, right? Like, I think even if there was a cost effective way to do it that was just like, you know, Persona style monsters that you don't actually see the thing because Atlas is cheap AF.
Yeah, that's a really good
like,
solution too.
That would work fine in like a 3D space, but for what this game is, I don't think that would work. You know, let's say this game ends up being a huge success, which honestly, like, I could see it doing okay. Like, it's really surprisingly polished. I was really impressed by what it was. But let's say it was successful enough, maybe they pursue 3D development going forward, right? Like, that's always a possibility. Sure. But as it stands right now, I don't think that it could really accommodate, you know, an overworld encounter system. Right. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, it's... Yeah. But I'm really liking it, and it definitely came out of nowhere for me. It'll be on my Game of the Year list, probably.
Definitely is... It's in my catalog of things to look at if I have the time, right? So like it's in the wings. You put it on my radar enough that I'm like, okay, I could see it honestly kind of taking a spot from Triangle Strategy if that ends up getting just too exhaustive or something, that I'm like, I just need something that's easily digestible, strategy classic. That, you know, and I could see Coromon kind of jumping in place of Triangle Strategy,
especially if it makes it to the Switch anytime soon. I think that could be a great platform to enjoy it on.
I'm kind of curious about trying it on phone, on a mobile setting.
You could.
It's never been good, but I when I saw that was an option, I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah. I'm kind of curious to see how they're gonna address
It'll be interesting.
But you can actually do it now, but you have to You have to do it like. Basically beta test it through another app.
For real?
Oh, I thought the beta was closed.
I just checked on the website, and if I think it's available, you basically just have to download another app. It's like,
it's fine. I mean,
it's
not weird or anything.
Timings. So here, the game already is built like to accommodate mobile interface. Like on my Surface, I can touch the screen and use an on-screen joystick. And the buttons are visible on the screen, so it clearly is built,
at all times. Interesting.
At least some of them are. Like there's a pause button that surfaces in the corner if you move the mouse around, and then there's a couple of action buttons in the bottom right. So there's enough for you to interact with it without a keyboard or without a controller. Yeah, you can play the game with the mouse if you want. So sure. Yeah,
play any game with a mouse if you really want.
It's true, you could. But yeah, so it's clearly that part of the deal is pretty well set up. Well, you know, it's just getting through Apple's App Store and all that stuff. It's probably going to take a little while.
Yeah, we'll check it out. Like I said, it's. I appreciate you bringing it and showing pictures and kind of making it known to me, because I definitely would have given it a second.
Honestly, neither would I. It's really just kind of kismet that I even came upon it, but I'm really liking it, so...
Yeah. Nice. Right on. Well, cool. I mean, I got a whole mess of stuff on my list still to talk about. It looks like you guys do as well. I don't know. I feel like I can knock off a couple here that are fairly short talking points that I can jump into.
Yeah, why
not? Jamie, or Geoff too. I don't know if you have, but Tunic. Speaking of Venn diagram that does cross over, running in the wake of Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring type feel. Yeah. We've got Tunic that just came out. Long in the Tunic, too thick. It's been in development for what it seems like quite some time, being shown off at pretty much every indie event ever for the last 15 years. But it's out and it's free on Games Pass.
It is.
It's available on Games Pass. And it's cool. It's a nice little platformer with a whole bunch of hidden stuff that just kind of unfurls.
Does it?
I'm liking it.
That's what I kind of wondered about. I went through, I got the sword and did some stuff in the first area. It felt good. It felt not huge.
It feels Let's see here. So I'll say this. I think that this is unlike Elden Ring. Tunic is a game that I definitely do not want to even glance at a spoiler.
No,
like I don't even want to be
not.
I don't want to even have it hinted at, because from what I've played, how it does unfold, those beats that happen and the depth that it then brings forth as it unfolds, I'm like, wow, this is this game's trick. This is what it's doing and bringing to the table that is interesting. Similarly to, if you to bring it back to Dark Souls, since all things are, it reminds me of in Dark Souls 1, where you would, this sounds so quaint now, where it's like, you would go into this like large boss fight area zone, and then you would clear it out, and then like tucked away in a corner you would find another door that would bring you back to this other location that you'd already been in. It's like, whoa, this whole world is connected, like stacks on stacks of a giant tower world environment biome, whatever. And I feel that there is similar there is that same kind of mechanic occurring in Tunic, but in a much more well orchestrated and gimmicky in a good way kind of method, where the rollout is cool and like it's a lot of head slapping of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is here the entire time. And I think that's where it is really successful and really novel. But I think it is fairly big.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, I can't say that with confidence, but I get the feeling. Again, I'm staying away from everything that I can Tunic, but the way that you collect some of the in-game map or whatever, what's the term, like the player guide that's in game that then kind of
the manual.
Thank you. Yeah, the manual that doesn't even open up. It just shows how you interact with certain features and abilities that you have in the game through pictograms and whatnot.
I love that stupid
it's cool, very cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. And that's it goes part and parcel with that expansion and that unfolding and that kind of like, oh my gosh, discovery of it's been in front of me this entire time.
Does the language
and that's where
reveal itself or no? Or is it always...
I haven't had that happen to me. I don't know if it is, but it's cool.
I think I went into it expecting it to be Zelda, and it's kind of more Dark Souls, like ring the two bells. And I was like, oh, it's Dark Souls again.
I don't care what it is, because it's got that sweet, sweet Donkey Kong music, and I'm all about that. You could put that on a screensaver, and I would get it, because oh my god, the music is so good. You guys don't like the music?
It's great music. I don't remember it right now.
I didn't even notice it.
I remember enjoying it.
What? Oh my god, I'm like totally in. I mean, I'm playing it on my TV. I got my nice, speakers going on, and it sounds great, and I'm totally all about it. It really is reminiscent of Donkey Kong music to me.
It's pronounced Danky Kang?
It's got that moodiness. Donkey Kang.
Yeah, no, it's and the combat wasn't initially like really grabbing me. I don't know. I have to give it a little more time to unfurl, because I was like, this is fun, this is solid. And I love the language, and I love the kind of feeling of like, what's going on? Where am I? What is this? But I don't know if I was loving being in the world and like interfacing with the elements of the world.
To use exactly what you're saying as a callback to what I said earlier, it was that feeling that I was having while playing Tunic that I was constantly comparing it to Elden Ring and Dark Souls, but having Elden Ring just like, cohabitating the entire time and being like, well, it's doing this, which is similar to this, or boy, I wish the numbers would go up when I would do this type of thing, that type of lizard brain nonsense. And that's where I was like, okay, I just need to make the clean break. Like, I need to get Elden Ring into a done state for myself so I can move into Tunic and appreciate it as is, instead of the lines constantly bleeding together.
Yeah. I think I also picked it up when I was feeling really mad at Elden Ring, like when I fought Margaret like 40 times, and then I was like, "Oh, great, more freaking Dark Souls."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did the same thing. I was like, "Oh, this is nice. This is so." Oh, fuck, man, come on.
Ring the two bells. I see what you're doing. One of the gargoyles fights happening.
Just kick me in the two bells while you're at it.
When do I fight the spider witch? Anyway.
Yeah, so I look again. It's a game that I want to be playing more of, and I appreciate Jamie. I didn't even the music didn't even ring any bells for me, so I'll make note of that when I jump back into it.
It's cool. It swells and it's context dependent, and it's it really added a lot for me.
I'm also suffering from a little bit of a problem where I am trying. Well, when I think of Tunic, it visually is so similar to oh goodness, the other little action platformer Dark Souls like from last year. Not Hollow Knight.
Deadly
bigger.
Distance.
Yeah, something like that.
What is it called? Dead by Day? Nope, not Dead by Daylight.
Death's
Door. There it is.
Yeah, that one. I get the world kind of blends together in my mind where I'm like, wait a second, was the Jug guy? Were the Jug people in? Which one was the Jug people in? Which had the funny fat frog swamp boss? Was that this? Did I get there? Was that in Tunic? I don't remember.
Is it a voxel game? It looks like a voxel game.
I think so. Those shrubs bounce all weird.
Which is fine. I like voxels.
Yeah, it's neato. More to come, though, I'm hoping.
Yeah,
I think we're in a good state right now in the video game space where we can kind of commit to, well, at least have a light at the end of the tunnel of like, here's what we've got and we can work on, opposed to just the constant deluge of more and more great games, which, good problem to have again.
Speaking of more and more things, but also things coming in the distance, not right now. The Super Auto Pets test server has some really cool new animals on it, and it's really fun. That game's still really good. There's strawberries, and if you put them on guys, then there's animals that affect strawberry pets. Also, they introduced moving pets around. Also, the game's really good.
I second that it's really good.
I'll send you the link to the test server, Griff. It's really fun.
I appreciate it, but I don't have time for it right now because I have so many other things to play. One of which I can knock off my list as not going to finish, not going to play any more of it. Ghostwire Tokyo. It did not land with me. Technically, I mean, like it reminds me of the same camera movement problems that I had with Cyberpunk, where I'm like, this was not tuned for a controller ever at all, one bit. Yucky. And like a lot of the vibe of the world, the characters, everything is just not landing. It just kind of has some pacing issues. I'm also watching Jujutsu Kaisen, and I'm like, man, these things go together so well. It's just too bad that Ghostwire Tokyo is not like sticking its landing. I mean, visually it's cool, but I guess I don't want to spend a lot of time, knocking it, and I don't really have anything to say except that it's like a cool first-person, finger-tutting game.
It's a first-person shooter with an art style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I heard it's pretty bad. What about Stranger Paradise? How's that going for you?
That's on the keeper list, man.
Oh, I gotta try it.
I am loving this game, and again,
awesome.
I mean, I'm kind of committed to loving it, right? Because it is throwing big bouncer vibes.
Yes, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, there's so many problems with the game that I think it's like Strangers of Paradise is emblematic of what Final Fantasy games are, in that it is all complete utter bullshit nonsense trash, but in the way that the bouncer is that same thing. It's like a perfect alignment of stars of trash that you're like, wow, this is Tokyo Drift, the video game, the Square Enix video game. I haven't played enough. Again, my commitment to the focus of one game, one life, has made me kind of step away from it. But from what I did play, I'm in the first dungeon area, and there's fairly quickly metering out classes and job classes for the characters, and it is very, again, Dark Soulsian, in that you've got potions that are like your flasks, you've got enemies that reset when you get to certain checkpoints in the dungeon. You're unlocking paths that cause you to circle around to then facilitate faster travel and whatnot within the same dungeon. I think that what makes this one fun for me and separates itself from the pack is the combat is different enough from a Souls game and different enough from like a Final Fantasy game that I'm enjoying engaging with it. I haven't hit a point where it's been too complex, but I have had my ass kicked a couple times where it's just like, oh, I need to slow down and be more methodical about this, versus like I can just run in and slam a jam, or I can kind of turn my brain off and just kind of autopilot it. Like it does take just enough focus that you're engaging with it. And then just with the complexity of systems that are all happening at the same time, where you're like, okay, I've got 3 different types of blocks. I've got a counter. If I switch to this, I can, it has like a Team Ninja inspired combo system in which you can change, job classes mid combo to then extend your combo, and you can cancel out of like a super mode to then extend your combo in a different way. So it has some of that like fighting game panache that I can appreciate, but I'm never good at. So there's a lot of moving pieces there, and I'm kind of afraid that if it does get more demanding, I won't be able to rise to it. But so far, I haven't hit a state like that.
I heard, just to do a callback to earlier in this podcast, I heard that mage builds are OP. Like, legitimately, though. Like, apparently the game is piss easy if you just do magic. So, yeah.
Yes and no from what I've played. I mean... It's more fiddly, it's more complex. Okay. But you can, I mean, obviously range attacks and being really slow and methodical, you can kind of cheese some more stuff.
I also heard your AI buddies like never die and can kill bosses on their own, basically.
Yeah, and then so technically that game is goofy and fun in the best ways and interesting enough to kind of keep it like a player in the landscape of games that are worth talking about and playing through, that are cribbing a lot from the Breath of the Souls kind of oeuvre.
Has Jack played Butt Rock on his iPhone yet?
Now we're talking about how fucking goofy this game is. Okay, there's the Sinatra song in the marketing
and also in the game.
So. Right? In the game, like, you start the game and you go into like these Elysian wheat fields scene, and it's like time to fucking learn how to play the tutorial nonsense. And as your character is like kind of meandering through peacefully, end of Gladiator style through it, and it's playing the intro to this song, like just before the chorus is able to kind of kick in, it just stops. And you're like, wait a second, I'm sorry, what? We're going all the way here, but we're not going to get to, I don't know, like the recognizable portion of this song that you would probably pay money for. Oh, it's so weird. And there's just so many things, like, if you could press a button to engage your allies and kind of like, I don't even want to say it's like cause them to target a certain mob, or it's basically just like a berserk mode. It seems like, it's like go act aggressively or something, and I haven't sussed out what's actually happening when you do that, besides them just like attacking more. But it's usually Jack, your main character, just barfing out something. It's like, fucking get him! And you're like, whoa, man. Or this dialogue is just like, the accidental barks in the background that are happening. It's just like, fuck, shit. And you're like, whoa, man, there's some like weird Tourette's going on here of things that are happening that I may be influencing and controlling, but just never feel like I have direct agency over. But I must have done something, because my character then told them to do this thing. And I don't know, it's just the juxtaposition of these characters in this world is bizarre, and there's just so many weird quirks like in this game of like,
can I just say that the
item barf menu nonsense, and
the fact that the internet has come to a point, because I feel like, okay, games like, I mean, this is not even comparable, but games like Nier, which were like diamonds in the rough, kind of got ignored when they came out. And I feel like there wasn't a system for the internet to like glom onto and catch games that are like very flawed but have something very unique to offer. And I feel like with Stranger of Paradise, people kind of got it. Like the first trailer, people were like, okay, this is garbage. After that, people got it like immediately. They were like, okay, never mind, this is amazing.
And more importantly, I feel like there isn't like a backlash against it. Like with Nier, there was a critical backlash because it was so, quote unquote player hostile.
Yeah, because the fishing minigame was hard.
Exactly. Whereas now I feel like people, expect, games like this will be obtuse in some ways, and that's okay. And that's cool. It was
really nice to see people just being so excited for such a stupid game.
Agree. Yeah. I think for better for worse too. I think it's due to the streaming nature of it. Like it's kind of a big old dumb game you can make fun of while still playing and find it challenging.
Fair, yeah.
So unfortunately, I think that's kind of the reason for that. And I don't like it, but I think it's good that then that does elevate certain things that may be immediately ejected from discourse in the
also
past.
Also just the memes. The memes were real good.
The memes are good. Yeah. I think the best question that some folks have asked about Stranger Paradise is like, does Square Enix and Team Ninja, are they in on the joke? Like, are they aware of what they've created, or is this like what is it, the Room?
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau, exactly, who pretended after the fact that he was in on it.
Classic.
I don't know. Does it matter? I mean, I guess it does matter. If it's try hard, I think it does. Right? Like that's not as funny as if it just is like earnest and actually wanting to be something of value. But I feel like if it were any company but Square Enix, you'd be like, all right, this is like what you're doing. But because it's Square Enix and it's like Tetsuya Nomura and his ilk, you're like, nope, they would do this.
That's what I was going to say, Geoff, is I think that's why I'm curious about intent behind it, because does this then forecast any of the future of a Square Enix game, and that it is less straight-laced and they are more accepting of kind of the quirkiness and the goofiness.
They already had a continuation of Final Fantasy X story where Tidus grabs what he believes is a blitzball and then it's a bomb and it explodes and his head lands in Yuna's hands. so I feel like they've already gone to some pretty weird places.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I think that's a different company though at that when you're referencing there.
Oh, you mean a different part of Square Enix? Good.
Well, yeah, I mean you're talking about Final Fantasy X too, right?
It was a novelization or like a light. It was a written element included in some of the Final Fantasy X-2 paraphernalia.
So, yeah,
written by one of the people internal to Square, though, like by the scriptwriter of Final Fantasy X.
Right. I'm saying that we're talking about 20-year-old differences. That's why, like, jokes aside, I'm saying that this is a different. So that
thing was actually
game.
Relatively new. That thing came out in the 2010s.
Oh, is this the Vita port?
I believe it came out around the time of the Vita port, yeah. So it's relatively modern.
So a Final Fantasy X-2 game had this in it? I guess I'm lost where this is coming from.
It was either an audio CD or a written thing that was Japan only, and continued the story of Final Fantasy X, where Tidus was being really horny. That was like a major plot point. There was something called like sex chakra, or I don't know, something with sex, and also him grabbing a blitzball that was actually a bomb and blowing up in his head, landing in Yuna's arms.
He dies?
Also, he's really horny.
So that's how he dies.
Those are the important things.
So besides Geoff's fanfic, I think that the point I'm trying to make is I hope that Square embraces more of that, and this is a sign of the times and less of an error, an unforced error that then is getting a lot of attention for whatever reason that may be. But moving along, I don't know. Our lists are getting a little thinner. You guys, Jamie, I see you've got some stuff on here that looks like not games per se.
I just want to say that I love the Mister. Should I explain what Mister is really quickly? Mister is okay. I think that Mister is great. I think that Mister is easier to use than any type of emulator front end that I've ever tried. And I feel like even though you do need to get into the weeds a little bit, I think this device is just the coolest freaking thing on earth. And the fact that now it basically plays PlayStation perfectly, and it will probably play Saturn perfectly, means that you have like this incredible way to play everything up through until that time, including like CPS cabinets, like like all the Alpha 2 Street Fighter stuff. Like you can access all that. And I just really like this thing, and I like how versatile it is. You can put it out to a CRT, you can put it out to a flat screen. I just think it's such a cool thing, and I'm surprised that I was able to get this deep into it, and I'm surprised that it's come this far. In many ways, it's like my take on it has like reversed in with regards to analog devices, because I had a lot of hope for the Analog Pocket, and that's just been completely dashed. There still isn't a jailbreak for it, so that really isn't like the viable FPGA be all end all that I hoped it would be. But the Mister has just like not stopped, and it's just such a cool thing. What I like about it is you don't need to tweak it. If you get your Mister up and running and you do nothing and you open the PlayStation Core and you play a PlayStation game, you're going to be getting something that you know is very like accurate to the way that the game was. It might not be perfectly accurate, but it's going to be pretty damn near close. You're not going to have to play with anything to get the lag down. You're not going to have to play with anything to make sure that the sound works. It's just going to work. And I really like that about it. And if there are any enhancements that are thrown on, they're thrown on in like a really thoughtful and kind of measured way. So I'm just like really freaking amazed by this thing. And I think it's really cool. I was playing Brave Fencer Musashi on it. That was a whole heck of a lot of fun. And yeah, if you guys have any interest, you should just pre-order one, because now you can't find them anywhere, and the best way to get them is to order the main board for it's like $175-$200 from the manufacturer's website, and like if you order it now you'll get it in June. But like get one, because it's like it's so cool, and it's just this little thing that's like power efficient.
I think it's awesome. Frustrates me so much. Like I really had a lot of hope for the Pocket to be something, and the writing seemed to be on the wall pretty quickly. And have they released the like game library function or whatever? Because that people were saying like, oh, when that comes out, that's when the jailbreak will hit.
I've just heard nothing.
It's very frustrating, because I just want a portable that can play these things fuss free. That's what I want more than anything. Mm-hmm. And until that arrives, I'm not interested, because like I can hook up anything to my TV and play PlayStation games, right? Like I have a PC hooked up to my TV right now that can run PlayStation games basically perfectly. And while the Mister is a technological marvel, unless that efficiency is used to some end, that like portability, it doesn't speak to me.
It'll get there, because we already have consoleized Misters. You can get Mister in a form factor that you can put in an ATX or a mini ITX case. You can get Mister in like a consoleized format. You can get Mister in a format that you can put into an arcade cabinet. I don't have no doubt. I wouldn't be surprised if someone smacks a battery on it and starts selling kits like that.
How big is the power supply? How many watts?
It doesn't have a power supply. It's just a barrel plug into a small wall wart. I don't know how many. Okay, so it's
probably like 30 watts or less, basically. Like I don't think a wall wart can even put out more than like 20 watts or something.
Yeah, and it's not FPGAs are actually not the most efficient chips in the world, But at the same time, yeah, I mean, it's a barrel plug. And it sips like power. I think that there's definitely going to be something portable. And I think that the way it really shines is if you guys ever pick up, or Griff, you probably do have a CRT.
Yep.
Like just having something that can do.
I also got a PlayStation.
Yeah, that's true. But having something that can, do like, I don't know if you ever want to capture, but like people seem to really like how it can output to both an HDMI and a CRT laglessly simultaneously for capture purposes. And also I just do that just because it's cool. And I just look at both things at once, and
I love it. Do you also look at?
I have a car that goes 260 miles an hour. I don't actually drive it that fast, but it goes that fast, isn't it?
While you're looking at those, do you look at your No More Heroes collection?
Yeah. But I really like it, and I find myself reaching more for it than I do for any of my other analog devices. I find myself reaching for it as opposed to, on this computer that I'm using right now to record this, I have a really nice, emulator front end set up, and I have everything ready to go, and I still have to futz with it. I hate that. Like, I don't know what your magic, sauce is, Geoff, but like, if I want to get stuff working smoothly, even on this beast of a computer, I got to get in there and start tweaking stuff. Whereas with this, I don't need to do that.
I mean, I think, if you just download RetroArch and think that you're going to be good to go, like, RetroArch doesn't even always have the latest course sometimes. Like, you have to choose the right one. There's a bit of fuss involved. If you know where to look, you can get some really compatible emulators for most consoles, right? But it is annoying.
The Mister has a script called Update All that I click on, and then it updates everything.
That's nice. I like that.
And every small thing has been thought about. Like if you define control, if you define like keypad options or control options on the main screen, that it'll apply it to every single emulator on the thing. Like all those little things are taken care of, which is nice.
Yeah. So I've got two questions from this, Jamie, in earnest about emulation. And they're kind of tied together, so we'll see if they end up being two. But with Sony announcing their new structure for their online service, having your 3 tiers, one of which is kind of your base level online play type of thing, and then your mid-level, which is going to be kind of your PlayStation Plus version, which you're getting games doled out in the same way. And then the third level, having access to a greater back catalog of historic games coming through emulation and streaming. Do you see that emulation in old games is truly a selling point for game players, and that's something that, now the Mister has competition in the emulation space? Or conversely, is there less of a value for these companies to tack on older game libraries to existing models because the Mister just does it better?
Well, I think it just completely depends on what you want. If you want to put out to a CRT, you can't do that from the PS5. It's just end of story. So that's one thing. If you have a CRT and you want to look at these games, I mean, these games look and feel better on a CRT, in my opinion. How much better? That's just up to you. But I enjoy playing these things on a CRT. The other thing is, if you get your library together and you get your Mister up and running, even if you never update it again, like if you made a Mister install today and you just kept everything the same, 20 years from now, you'll be able to play those games and put them out to a CRT or an LCD or whatever you want. And they will look great and run great, and they'll look and run like they did, because it's hardware emulation. Who knows what Sony's going to do 20 years from now, and so I feel like this is like a really great way to have those things. And the other thing is, the Mister is the only thing where you can be playing on a CRT, you can play Final Fantasy Tactics, and then with literally 2 clicks, three clicks, you're playing Yoshi's Island. And then with 2 or 3 more clicks, you're playing some Master System game that you heard about. Like, that's what's cool about the Mister.
And I would add
I
that
like a lot.
more and more, like, classic games are being tied to subscriptions now. Like, it used to be you could just repurchase your classic game. Now it's like, subscribe to our platinum tier to get access to your old library. And, like, look at the sorry state that N64 emulation launched in on Switch. Like, I tried those games and the input lag was so bad that, like, I could not play them.
Right, or carry over back catalog for any Nintendo products.
And it's gotten better, but, like, also they're very small. Like, the libraries are quite small, and the ways in which these companies have preserved their libraries is not great. And part of that is licensing, I know, but it's like, it's just not. It's not to the level that emulation offers, whether you do it through FPGA or whether you just do it through more kind of conventional means.
And the Mister is great for, I mean, it literally fits in the even like I have a nice acrylic case on mine. There's so many options in terms of how you make it look and, so on and so forth. So it's fun to kind of like tweak and play around with. But it fits in the palm of your hand. So I've taken it to, my office sometimes and just plugged it into my computer monitor and just played it that way.
It to PAX, Jamie?
It takes whatever. I will totally bring it to PAX.
Do you have 2 controllers?
You can use any controller you want, including the PS5 controller. And the PS4 and PS5 controllers are actually great because every computer that you could ever... I really have no interest in playing like Commodore 64 games, but if you wanted to play Commodore 64 games or any of these old computers or just Apple games from like, the 90s, you can use the PS5 or PS4 trackpad as like a mouse, which is
really cool. Are we playing Sonic 2 at PAX?
Yeah.
On your Mister?
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Hell yeah.
And you can, any Bluetooth controller will work. Any actual controller will work. You can get, they call it a snack. That's how it's like this intermediate dongle.
Oh, so no physical wired into it? Or probably anything with USB, right?
Anything with USB, but through the snack, you can take any controller, any real controller. You can take your actual SNES controller from 30 years ago and just plug it in and use it. Yeah, the possibilities are endless, and the amount of stuff that people are putting out there is wild. You can get a consoleized version of the Mister right now that has an SNES controller port on it and a Genesis controller port on it, so you don't even need the snack dongle. And I think it's just going to keep like exploding, and that's why you can't even buy one now. You have to get on these stupid wait lists. But I just think it's like the coolest scene. And I'm really happy that I have one and I get to dick around with it because it's super fun.
So that kind of leads back to my second question, which is like this you've described as a scene, which I wholeheartedly agree with. It sounds like this is a lifestyle of emulation that you subscribe to. Do you feel like this is going to be big enough that it would then cause a threat to have these larger companies, pursue improving their back catalog and providing some of those things that this tool has now afforded to then entice players into ecosystems?
I hope so. I think that FPGA technology is only going to get bigger and bigger. The Mister is the second iteration of this project based off of a newer, better FPGA than what was used for the Mist, the first generation of the product. And everything that they learned and did for the original version applies to the Mister because of the way that FPGA chips, the way that they're, made, so that essentially you just want more real estate on that chip. So I have no doubt that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there will be the third iteration of Mister that will probably run N64 and PlayStation, maybe even PlayStation 2. But everything that they've done so far will just already apply to that new variation because of the way that these chips work. So I think that there are more and more companies making FPGAs. There are FPGAs being used in more and more products, audio products, all sorts of weird products. So I think that these chips are fascinating in and of themselves, and I think that these are like durable improvements that are being made in emulation that I think will outlast even the project itself and just keep getting bigger. So yes, I hope it does put pressure on these companies to beef up their offerings, because there's this awesome alternative that seems to be wildly successful, and it really seems like a lot of people are.
You know what
into
I think is the next frontier of emulation? NFTs. Move over, FPGA. No, it's really cool, and I love FPGA as like a technological marvel, and I think that it what it has to offer is really unique and interesting, and I hope that it spurs some kind of competition. But for now, I've got my eye mostly on the kind of handheld emulation scene, which is also growing by leaps and bounds.
Yes, definitely. I love that's another awesome scene. Did you get your?
No, I don't even know
yet?
when it's coming. I know that this is the period of time when there's like a lot of holidays, so I don't know how much work they're doing. I periodically get updates, but I think they're working through their shipping queue, and it's probably pretty long.
Geoff ordered like a game changer in the handheld emulation space called an
So
what is
Ein Odin? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like
man.
like $200 device that can comfortably play like up to some GameCube, which is pretty exciting. I'm more interested in just rock solid retro performance. I think it can maybe also perfectly run in 64. I can't remember, but again, I'm much more interested in everything PlayStation and earlier. So, but yeah, I'm very excited about it. One day I will get it. Also, I got to cancel that analog still.
I already did that a long time.
How does it work? All right.
Yeah, I just emailed them.
Got that company.
Well, gentlemen.
Anyway, sorry.
Speaking of topics that some of us care deeply about and the others aggressively do not, Dragalia Lost is ending. I would like to speak on this, but I'm trying to collect some thoughts on it and how that ties into service.
Should we have a funeral?
Maybe. I think that there's a lot to be said for something like this and this type of occurrence happening. It's very much in the kind of vein of like a death of an MMO. So I think that we're going to be seeing more of this in the future. And like I said, I'm trying to collect my thoughts and do some writing on this.
Do you think it died by gun?
Nice.
Added gun. Yeah, are they doing a cataclysmic event?
They're doing an end to the story. So again, I know we're running long here, and I would love to talk more about this, but I think I would like to table this
tee it up for next time. I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get to just see. We got a couple other topics. We're at a long hours. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? I'm just calling dibs on Dragalia next time we chat. We got a couple other things here, but I don't know if anybody cares passionately about anything topic-wise.
I think so. Breath of the Wild 2 delay is I guess expected, but also kind of a bummer. But I feel like this year is so stacked that it's kind of like it kind of softens the blow.
Didn't even know it was slated for this year.
Yeah. Also, spring, it feels like a good time. I'm really hoping it hits the March 9th or whatever, so it's 6 years after the first one. That'd be fun.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a good time for it.
Hyped about those Pokemon. Fuecoco.
Yeah, I would love to talk more about that too. I put together a Pokemon quick hit quiz for everybody, but again, something I'm waiting for
trailer 2 when they show a little more of the world, but it looks exciting. I'm optimistic. I don't know how they did it, but they've got me back on their team again after Arceus, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I think that's good. I think that, despite wanting to go longer, it's in everybody's best interest to wrap it up here. Save a little bit for next time, just in case, as we did say, some of the content this year is winding down. So it'll be a lot of rehashing of games that we've still got in flight, and then discussing these news topics and fun games. As they come out. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you for your time and insight. This has been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. Love doing these things.
Yep. Well, as we say every week, on this show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.